This conference will now be recorded.
So in our previous class, we were discussing about rule sets, right? So whenever we are creating any of the application, either framework or implementation application, for the first time, any application created for the first time on one organization, it has to create two rule sets for its implementation, and parallelly it has to create two rule sets related to organization also. And next, if you are trying to create any application, it might be the framework or implementation, then those corresponding two rule sets will be created. So as of now, we'll be having 6 different rule sets. If I'm creating one more new application, it will be creating only 2 rule sets. So ultimately, we'll be having 8 rule sets in that case. So in our perspective, we'll be having 6 rule sets, and each and every application has to be just identified the hierarchy of these rule sets. So this is our implementation application. If you want to just check for the applications, just check for the rule sets which are applicable to this application, click on definition, and here we can able to see the hierarchy. So if I'm trying to request for any rule, it might be either calling a flow rule or any section rule from this application, or I can able to directly check for the rule. Okay, so we have just created many section rules, right, or any other property rules. So if I'm just searching for first name, so if I just click on and search here, I'll be getting all these instances. So this is something relevant what I'm looking for. Okay, so if I just click on it, this will be opening. So what PRPC is doing internally, if I'm just searching for the first name, it has to identify this rule whether it is existing here or not, then after here, then finally into the organization. And if no results are found, then it has to check in its parent, in its parent application. And here in this parent application, it will be having some rule set hierarchies, and it has to check in the framework. So if no results are obtained in the framework also, then what it has to do, it has to check for the next hierarchy. It will not check organization again. So this set of hierarchy, if you want to identify, it can able to be observed in my profile. Okay, in my profile, I can able to see, so these two are the application, so these two are the rules for the implementation, and then after organization, then after framework, then all the OOTP rule sets. Okay, for each and every operator, there will be one rule set created here. We can able to see this is also one of the rule set. So what are all the rules we are checking out? We'll discuss this when we're working with check in, check out, and after locking this, we'll discuss. So if you log in with your operator ID, you will be having your operator ID there. So there will be one rule set created for that particular operator. So if I'm creating, if I'm just logging any of the rules, as just discussed in our previous class. So if some of the versions are logged, if any of the rule is logged, and if I'm trying to make some changes, what I have to do, I have to just take the control of that particular file, then we can able to make the changes, but we cannot able to update it. Why? Because it's completely locked off. So any of the rule which is still in your control, then it will be created in your rule set, in your own rule set. For each and every operator, there will be one rule set. We'll discuss this after some time. Okay, so initially it has to be checked in its application from where we are calling. Suppose if you are searching for this particular first name property rule by logging into your framework application, what it has to do, it has to check for its immediate rule sets. So it has to check for its framework application rule set. Then after, it will be checking in the organization rule sets. Then after, it has to go to its parent application, that is UI kit here, and from there it will be start going into the OOTP. Okay, suppose if I'm having two framework application, one implementation application, then PRPC has to check for the rule from where we are calling. Suppose if I'm calling it from the implementation, then it has to check for the rule in the implementation rule sets. Then after framework one rule set, sorry, implementation one, then after organization, then after into the framework one, and in the framework two, and it will be going to OOTP. So this is what it will be following the hierarchy. If you want to know the hierarchy of the rule sets in your particular organization, you have to check in your operator profile. So this is what we have discussed. And for each and every rule set, there will be some versions. We can able to see. So this particular first name property has been first name property only, right? This first name rule has been created in this particular rule set, and it is still showing some number meaning version. As I told you, each and every rule set will be given with the versions. So rule set ultimately is just a collection of or a container of rules, and those rules can be versionized. I can able to use this first name property in my version 1 as well as in the version number 2 also. Suppose I'm working on the section rule I'm working on, and the first phase of development has been completed. Then what they will be doing, they will be locking this version number 1 in order to not to make any changes, or not the any changes should not be reflected into the production. So that's why they will be locking that particular rule set. And in the next release, if you want to make some modifications to the existing same section rule. Then what we will be doing, we'll be just taking a copy of that particular rule, and that particular rule has to be created in one version. That version has to be like 02, not the 01. Why? Because 01 has already been logged. So this particular rule set and this particular version will be pointing to the production. So we cannot able to make any modifications to this rule set. So instead what we'll be doing, we'll be just creating that rule into the next versions, either 1, 2, or 2, 3, 4, anything. Okay. So if there is any parallel development happening, one team's development should not affect the another team's development. So that's why they will be having different versions. Getting my point? Suppose if we 3 persons are working in the first initial phase for developing first 4 screens, so that will be moved to the deployment after some time. Then after, myself will be working on the same first development cycle. If there are any defects identified, then I have to fix it likewise. So I'm still working in this initial development cycle only, even though if it is moved to the production, and you both are working in the next phase meaning you have to start working on designing screen numbers 5, 6, 7. Okay, so my project work is different and your project work is different. Okay, so the work what I'm trying to do has to be created in one version, and the work what you are creating will be deployed maybe after some time. Okay, our work should not be correlated. So if we are having the same version, like version number 1 I'm working on, and if you are also working on the version number 1, then it will be very difficult for the production case. Ultimately for the production, it has to be pointed out with the version number. So they will be locking this version. If that is the case, your version rules also will be locked out, and that will be reflected in the production, and you cannot able to make any modifications. So that should not be the case. That's why in order to have this parallel development possible, they will be pointing out each and every versions separately. Okay, so this version 1 is the initial one, and once we are done with our development, it will be moved to the production. And now if there are any defects identified by the testing team, suppose in the first initial section screen, if the first name alignment is not proper or anything, if there is any issues identified, then what they will be doing, they will be raising few defects. I'll be working on this development phase 1, and you both are parallelly working on development phase 2. That is like we're creating screen number 5, 6, 7, so on. So you will be given with the second version. Okay, so this is version 1, which is moved to the development, and you will be working on version 2, and we will not be having any relationship between rule sets. And now if we are getting any defects as part of this version number 1, which is moved to the production, what I have to do, I have to fix those. Testing team will be raising, and I have to fix those. Then what I have to do, I cannot able to directly open this particular section rule, and I will not be directly making any changes there. Why? Because it's completely locked off. For that, I have to create one more version for the testing, defect fixing. So one version will be created like version number 3, which is meant for defect fixing. There I will be fixing all the defects, and this version 3 will be moved to the production. So version 1 and version 3 rules will be moved to the production. Ultimately, first initial development phase will be successful. Then after, anyways, you started working on version 2, right? Then once you are done with this version 2, and you can able to move this to deployment. So this is how we can able to make the parallel development possible by creating versions without disturbing the production code. Okay, so the importance of this versioning here is it will be very easy for the deployment, and it will be very easy for the user understand. It will be very easy even for the understanding perspective. Understanding perspective meaning, let me tell you one real example. Like Windows operating system, we know, right? So Windows will be releasing many versions. It will be releasing 7 version, then after it has released 8 version, then after it has released 8.1 version, and then finally it has released the 10th version. So it has not released 9 version, or it has not released 8.2 or 8.3. So these kind of versions are not been released. There is one specific thing why they are skipping some versions, meaning. Okay, for that let me show you the initial one here. So if I'm trying to create any rule, by default we will be having this rule set selected that we have discussed, and the version number starts with 010101. Okay, so there is some importance for this 0101. So any of the rule sets should start having versions like this one. So the first 01 will be called as a major version. Okay, and this will be considered as a minor version, and this will be considered as a patch version. So by just defining the version number, so by default it will be this one only, and the next version will be 01 01 02. Okay, and next will be 01 01 03, and next will be 01, 01, 99. Likewise you can able to create 99 patch versions. And once you are done with this, then it will be coming to 01. Minor version will be increased 02, 01. Then after 01, 02, 99, so on. Okay. So finally it will be coming to 01, 99, 99. Then once the minor versions are reaching 99 version, then they will be incrementing the major versions 02, 01, 01, and finally it will be reaching 99, 99, 99. So this is the incrementing order. Okay, initially version should start with this number, and then after it has to be incremented with the patch versions. Once this is reaching 99, it starts incrementing with the minor versions. So once the minor version is also reaching 99, it has to increase the major version. Okay, so there is no specific rule or any regulation that we have to follow the proper order. Once this 0101 has been completed, it is logged, then I can able to directly create 02 or 02, or likewise also I can able to create. So I can able to create any version in any order, so PRPC will not object anything. So the purpose of we creating version number, as I told you, this is for the patch version, and this is for the minor version, and this is for the major version. Suppose if you feel that we are providing major changes to our software or to the rules, then we will be increasing this major version. Okay, this will be considered as a major version. If any of the rules if any of the new version is being created after we locking this, if I'm trying to give like 02, 02, 01, 01, then it will be under impression that, so I'm trying to correlate with the normal example. Okay, so if you're after the version number 7 of Windows 10, of Microsoft, then they have released 8 version. Then after they has released 8.1 version. Why they have released 8.1 version? Meaning whatever the issues or whatever the defects they identified in the version number 8, they will be fixing it and they will be releasing it. So that will be considered as an 8.1 version. Why? Because they cannot able to fix all the defects in the 8 version itself. Why? Because that will be completely locked off. Okay, that's why they will be increasing the minor version or the patch version. So if they release the patch version like 8.1, 8.1 or 8.2, then we should be understanding that there are very minor modifications changed to the latest version 8. And if they directly release the version number 9 or 10, then we should be understanding that major version has been increased and there are lot many changes in the user interface or lot many changes in the normal operating system. This is how we have to understand. So that's why they'll be changing the version number. Even in the pega also, pega software also, what they're doing, they will be releasing 6.1 version, then after 2, then after 3, then after 4, and then after they have directly launched the 7 versions. 7th version they have directly launched. Why? Because they feel, compared to 6th version, they feel that they have implementing case management in the version number 7, which will be making very easy in creating the rules. That's why they have directly incremented the version number to 7. They have not created any version like 6.5. Okay, so likewise, if whenever there is increment, whenever the organization feeling that there are major modifications in the particular version, then they will be going for the major version increment. So these kind of thing they will be incrementing. Okay, suppose if you are working in a complete big new project, initially we are having this one. Okay, and myself and Tulani are working on this, the same defect fixing. Then what I will be doing, I will be just creating one patch version, and parallelly Uma is working on some other integration project within my this one only. So in the second screen, if we have to get any data using integrations, which seems to be very big project, then their manager will be creating one new rule set for them to create all the rules, and that might be given with 04, 04, 04 also. Okay, so based on the version number, we have to just identify whether the patch version is getting incremented or the minor version or the major version. If it is of major version, we can able to understand that there might be big modifications. For the normal defect fixings, we will be having 0101. 0 patch versions will be incremented if there are any small defect fixing kind of things. But this is not an thumb rule. This is just for the practice what people will be doing. If it is of incrementing the minor version, or sorry, the patch version, we have to understand that there are only small changes being happening on the existing version. And if they're directly incrementing the minor version or the major version, we have to understand that there are new projects or that there are major modifications going to happen. Getting my point? So this is the concept of versioning. So even in the pega versions also, or in the Microsoft versions also, we can able to understand if they're directly releasing 8.1 version, then we have to understand it is something related to 8 version only, and they're just incrementing the patch version. So only minor modifications or minor updates has been happening. And then after 8.1 they have directly launched the 10th version. Then we can able to understand that there will be major difference between 8.1 version and the 10th version. And after this, if they are releasing 11th version, then we can able to understand that there are major changes. If they are releasing 10.2 or 10.3, then we should not be considering that they're giving the big features in that particular version. So this is how business will be following, and this is not a rule. This is just a business perspective what it is following. If it is incrementing the patch version, then only the defect fixes or the small kind of issues they have been fixed. And this is called as a major, and this is called as a minor, and this is called as a patch version. Okay, once we log this version, then we cannot able to create any rules here. This version will be completely logged off. And what are all the rules that are already created? We can able to see those rules, we can able to execute those rules, but we cannot able to make modifications, or we cannot able to update those. Okay, why? Because those rules are completely meant for production pointing. Suppose if I create one rule, one section rule, which is in the version number 1 as well as the version number 2. As I just told you, in version number 1, I have created my user interface, customer registration section, and that has been moved to production. And if I'm getting any defect in there, then I should be fixing that defect into the particular section only, right? So I cannot able to make modifications to this particular section in that version. Then I will our manager will be creating new version for us, like 01, 01, 02. That version has to be used for the defect fixing. And if I'm working on the defect fixing, I should be creating any of the new rule into that version only. Why? Because this version like 01, 01, 02 will be moved to the production as part of defect fixing. Okay, so PRPC will be having two versions here. For the one section rule, for the registration page, it will be having two versions, 01 as well as 02. Ultimately, PRPC has to pick the latest one only. Okay, so if version number 1 and 2 both are pointed to the production, if version 1 and version 2 both having the same rule, then during runtime it has to pick the latest one only. So then only our defect fixes will be reflected, right? So that is the concept. Understood now, both of you? Any confusion? Uma,
No.
Tulani?
No, Chandra.
Tulani also, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now I'll show you how to create the new version and how to log the existing version. Okay. So for that, you have to go into the rule set. Suppose if you want to log this particular version, so we are working on this framework rule set, right? And if I want to log any of the version, sorry, we have to go to this definition. I want to log this version number 1 of this particular rule set. Just open the rule set. We'll be having like this. Okay. So if this is of application validation and the rule set, any of the rule set should be of either application validation or the rule set validation. If it is of application validation, this particular rules can be used across this application completely. And if it is of rule set validation, these particular rules which are created in this rule set will be accessible by only the limited rule sets. If I have this organization, let me open this. So this organization rule set is by default kept as a rule set validation, and all other rule sets will be of application validations. What are the rules I'm creating into this? Then I can able to have this rule set rules accessible or reference to anywhere. But if it is of rule set validation, this rule set will be applicable only to the rules which are been referring by the prerequisite we are defining here. So we should be providing some prerequisites here. So based on the business requirement, if you want to make this to rule set or if you want to make this to validation, we can able to change this. Okay, so if it is of rule set, we have to provide a prerequisite. So which are all the rule sets can able to access these rules. So that is the prerequisite we should be providing here. By default, it can able to access only the integration rule sets, organization integration. So So this is our implementation rule set, right? And if I want to log this, just click on lock and save. It will be asking for the password and confirm password. You have to remember it. If you forget it, no one can able to unlock it. So you are given with administrative access. This is the administrator login. So that's why we can able to do this, and I will be giving the password. If you want to unlock it and if you want to make any kind of changes, if you forget the password, we cannot able to retrieve it. That is important. So I'm submitting it. So by default it will be throwing some error. You have to refresh this. So there is one issue with this personal edition. So first to create the version number 2. So I'm trying to create new version. I still didn't log this version number 1. I'm trying to create new version. There is some HTML issue in the personal edition. So that's why we could not able to log this initially. I'll show you now. So now I'm trying to create new version. So new version is by default taking like 010102, right? It is just incrementing the patch version. If you want to make this updated also, it can be possible. That's up to you. Okay, I'm trying to create new version with this number and click on create and open. Create, and you can able to give some meaningful description also. Suppose if you are working in a sprint number 2, you can able to give like this. And if you're working anything related to integrations, you can able to think. So this is just for a understanding perspective. That's it. So I'm just creating. So version number 2 rule set has been created. And now save this. And now refresh it. So version number 2 has been created. You can able to see. Now log this version number 1 by expanding this. So click on lock and save. Give the password. Rules. I'm giving like rules. Submit this. And this is locked. You can able to see, right? So we can able to see this version number 1 has been logged out and version 2 has been open. So if you want to create any of the rules into this implementation rule set, you should be creating it in the rule set number 2, sorry, version number 2 only. You cannot able to use the version number 1. Likewise, let me close all this in. So this is for implementation application. Let me close version number 1 for each and everything. I'm trying to close the organizations also. Actually, this will not be done by your developers will not be giving a chance to do this mostly. Business analyst or the LSS will be doing this. Not business analyst, LSS will be doing this. Your managers will be doing this. Okay, I have created version number 2 for all the rule sets applicable for the implementation application. Now let me create version 2 for the framework as well. And from tomorrow's class, we'll discuss about OBJ methods. That will be interesting again. Okay, I have just closed all the version number ones, meaning version number one has been moved to production, and now only version 2 is available in each and every rule set. Suppose if I'm trying to create one new property rule or any rule, so from this time onwards we will not be having version number one enabled. You can able to see I cannot able to create any of the rules into this version number one. What are all the open versions I have, I can able to use only those versions. Okay, understood? So by default, what are all the rules we have created? We can able to see everything with this version number one only. So this particular flow rule or any rule which is created in the version number one has moved out. So can you make any modifications here? Earlier we have seen something like save option, right? Something like draft can be on off initially and we can able to make the changes. But now can we make any changes? We cannot able to make any changes here. We open any rule, we can able to open any rule, or we can able to see the data, or we can able to save as this to the next version, but we cannot able to delete this, or we cannot able to update it. So select query will be executed, inserting or deleting will not be updated here. PRPC will not allow this kind of queries generated in the backend from this particular rule. So you can able to see the data. So this is our flow action rule. Okay, and this is our section rule. So can we make any modifications? Suppose if we get any defect here, so saying like this first name, they should be making some modifications here, which is raised as a defect. Then what you have to do, you should be creating this section into this next version, that is like version number 2. Then you have to save as this. So I'm trying to save as this, which is into the version number 2, and I'm not making any changes. I'm just making this to be created in the framework rule set. That's it. And click on create and open. So now we can able to make these modifications to the section rule. Why? Because we have save option, or we can able to make, I can able to delete this rule also. Ultimately, this particular section rule has been created in the version number 2. So if I'm trying to make any modifications here, it will not be reflected into the production. Why? Because we have only 01 pointed to the production. Okay. So once the issues are fixed, once the defects are fixed from your end, which is like 02 version meant for that, then what you will be doing, you will be sending one mail to the deployment team, then you'll be providing the rule set and the corresponding version. Okay, suppose with this rule set and this particular version, if you're having 10 different rules, so which you have modified or created as part of this defect fixing, then they will be pointing out this particular rule set and this version, and what are all the rules we have, that will be automatically reflected there. So in the output, if you are just executing this work object ID, we should be having this latest 2 version that has to be picked out. Okay, why? Because what are all the modifications we are making, that has to be reflected there, no? So that is the purpose of we creating this version number 2 rule. 2 rule that is created only for that purpose. So PRPC has to pick all the time the latest version only. That is very important. So during runtime also, PRPC has to pick the latest version. Understood, both of you? Can able to make modifications, you should be save asing it to into the corresponding rule set, and then only you have to make the modifications. My understood, huh?
Yeah.
So now let me tell you one more thing. So we have just created our section rule, right? So this is my section rule, which is created in the version number 2. Okay, so now I'll show you. Okay, so this is in the version number 2, and Uma and myself are to be working on the first project, that is for the defect fixing, and meanwhile Tulani will be working in the next project, so which has been created for her to be used to like 010105. So there is one separate version created for her project, and she will be using that rule set only. And Uma and myself has to work on this initial development cycle, and where we will be fixing the defects or the bugs. Okay, in that process, Uma will be logging in with her operator ID, and I will be logging with my operator ID. Two different operator IDs will be there now. So if we both pick the single defect. Okay, if we both are picking the same defect ID, and if she is fixing from their end and if I'm trying to fix from my end, okay, suppose the fix should be, I'm trying to insert one label. I'm giving something like operator 1. So operator 1 is working on this particular defect and is trying to make modifications on this. Okay, and parallelly another operator also working on the same rule and making the modifications. Then what it will be doing, it has to show only one result data, right? So if myself picking this rule and making the modifications and saving this, it will be reflected in the output. I mean, it will be reflected properly. And meanwhile, Tulani is also working on this parallelly, and she does not know that I'm working on this. I'm trying to make the modifications here. What she will be doing, she will be making her modifications. If she is refreshing, then what are the changes I'm making, it will be reflected there also, but she does not know that I'm working on it. So she will be making some changes on top of the file which I have it, sorry, she will be taking one file and she will be working on that. And if she's trying to click on save from her end, then ultimately the final rule will be updated with the latest save things. Getting my point? So further, let me show you first how to create new operator ID, and we'll see how the changes will be reflecting if we're trying to make modifications with two different operator IDs at a time. Okay, so let me show you how to create one new operator ID for you. So to create any new operator ID, just go to our operator ID. So this is my operator ID. If I just click on operator, I can able to see my operator rule form. Okay, so this is my operator ID, and now I want to create one more operator ID for Uma or someone. If any one of the new join coming to our organization, then what we'll be doing? So operator need not be done by the managers or LSS also. It can be done by anyone who has given access to that particular application. Okay, so I'm just to save as in this. So if I just click on save as, I can able to create one operator rule form just like mine. Okay, you can able to create the new operator form also. That's up to you. Click on organization. If you click on this operator ID, we'll be getting the same rule. Here you should be giving your the name, like short description like new developer joining or anything. Here you can able to give the operator ID, and once we click on submit button, then automatically we'll be getting this screen only. So in this screen we should be giving his full name, his email ID, and his access group. Suppose you were not sure about the access group. I joined organization very recently, and this is my operator ID created by someone. And now if you want to create the operator ID for some other people, they will be asking you. If any new person joining, then they will be asking you to create the operator ID irrespective of your experience. If you're having operator access to this particular application, you can able to give this. So they'll be just asking you to create operator ID. If you say that you don't have much practice on doing this, then it will be very silly thing from their perspective. So that's why you have to know how to create the operator ID from our end. Okay, so you don't know what is the access group that has to be given for them, and you don't know what is the thing you have to give it here, and what are all the organization structure you have to give it. So instead of we identifying each and everything, what we can able to do is we can directly save as our operator rule form with their name. So I'm just saving as this and giving something like claims 1. Okay, I'm trying to create one more operator ID for claims 1. Claims new operator, let us say. So just click on create and open. So access group will be same as my access group, meaning whatever the thing I can able to access, the operator should also access the same thing. We'll discuss about this much detail later. And full name, email ID, if you want to change, you can able to change that. But this not affect anywhere. Finally, this will be the operator ID. Okay, so you can able to see this work thing or the work group, everything getting updated automatically. Why? Because whatever the thing your operator ID is having, everything this new operator rule form also should be reflected. So just click on save. So in this process, did we give any password? So I'm just logging off. Now I'm trying to log in with the new operator ID, that is claims1@chg.com. Password is rules. So why am I giving password rules? Meaning whatever the password I have, the same password will be reflected for them also. Okay, if you want to change the password also, you can able to do that. So I have just logged into the application as a second operator. Okay, second operator. Suppose if this is Tulani's or Uma someone's operator, and now Uma started working on the same rule what I have just picked up. Sorry, this is the one, right? Okay, the same rule. On clicking on this, what is the version we are getting? Version number 2 only. Did we get this version number 1? We did not get. Suppose if you want to see this version number 1, how it is working, fine. Sorry, how it is working, then you can able to see it with actions and click on view reference. We can able, sorry, view versions. We can able to see this particular rule has been created with these many versions. The first version, the first version, click on this when we can able to see how the changes are here. This will be considered as a reference for you. So this is the first version, and if you are trying to make modifications on the next version, this is just for the comparison purpose. Okay, can you make any changes here? Are we getting save option here? No, I have to go to version number 2 to make the modifications only. Now we'll be getting the save option. So operator 1, this is the change what has been done by the operator number 1. Okay, now I'm trying to change this to operator number 2, and parallelly another developer is logging with the operator number 1. So this is with the another operator ID, that is operator ID 1, let us say. So he's having operator number 1 here. So if I just save this, this particular rule should be showing operator 1 only. Now Uma is submitting and updating this to operator number 2 and saving this. So if I refresh it here, so what is the data we are getting? Operator 2. So ultimately, what are all the values that has been updated recently, those values will be reflected. So one of the developer changes will be lost. Okay, if we are working parallelly on one rule, only the latest things will be updated. One of the rules, one of our changes has to be lost. So in order to avoid that parallel development, in order to avoid that parallel development, we have to go for something called check-in, check-out. So check-in, check-out is a concept where we can able to get the access on the particular rule where other operator cannot able to get the access at the same time. Okay, so I'll show you how to give access to this check-in, check-out. So for that we have to give access to the check-in, check-out, and that has to be done in the rule set version. So this is the rule set version I'm using, and here as I told you, version number 2 will be in running now. Version 1 is completely logged off, and for this version number 2, overall working on this version number 2, parallel development you should not do parallel development, it should not be possible. So in that case we have to give check-in, check-out. For that, go to security tab of the particular rule set, then you mark this checkbox, use checkout. So you mark this and click on save and refresh it once. So it's issue with the this corresponding rule set rules in the personal edition. So this has been enabled. Now if I refresh it, so what am I getting? I'm getting some extra options like checkout. Okay, so this is with the operator ID 1. Now in order to make any changes into this particular rule, first thing what I have to do is I have to check out here. So if you are checking this out, then this particular rule will be under your control. So if you are making any modifications, I'm trying to make the modifications to operator 1 and submit. You have to save this. If you save this also, it will not be it will be still under your control only. Unless you check in, it will not be given access to the other operator. So let me show you. So this is with the another operator. If I'm refreshing it now, so I'm refreshing it now. So will this particular rule will be available to this operator? Why? Because this has been checked out by another operator. we can able to see, so this particular section rule has been checked out. Checked out meaning I will be taking complete control of that rule, so no other developer can able to work on the same rule at a time unless I check in or unless I discard. So if another operator is trying to open the same rule, then he cannot able to have any option here. Although if he's trying to make modifications here, he cannot able to save this. Why? Because this is completely taken control by another operator. So instead, for the testing purpose, you can able to use this private edit. So if I just click on private edit, we can able to see this. So this rule has been checked out by one operator called claims one. So we should be asking this operator to discard the changes, or he has to check in the changes, meaning either discarding or checking in, the rule will be coming out of his control. So if the rule is coming out of his control, it will be available for any other operator. So if I'm trying to discard it, discard meaning it will be discarding all the changes and it will be going back to the check-in stage, checkout stage. So now if I refresh it, I'll be given access with the checkout. So I can able to take the control of this particular rule. So this is common in every technology, not only with this pega. So check-in checkout concept is common everywhere. Understood, both of you, Uma, Tulani? So in order to avoid parallel development, we have to have this check-in checkout concept at the rule set level.
Okay.
Clear now, both of you?
Yeah.
Tulani also, no?
Yes, sir.
So PRPC has to pick all the time the latest version only. So there will be many rules. So in the real time, if we just click on checkout, then it will be notified to each and every developer. Suppose if we three working on the same particular rule set, then if I'm checking out this, then it will not be available for you both unless I check in or unless I discard. So that is the concept. Okay, instead if I just check out this, which will be under my control, and if I forget to check in, what it has to do, it will be completely blocking your development, right? So you have to wait for my action from my end, else you cannot able to work from your end. So in order to avoid that, PRPC will be removing the lock automatically after 30 minutes. Okay, even that time can also be changed. So by default it will be releasing the lock. It will be discarding all my changes, what I'm trying to do. If I'm saving it, or if I'm not saving it, it will be discarding, and then it will be putting the rule back to the normal version. Then it will be available for you after 30 minutes. Okay, so if I just forget it, it will be blocking others development work, no? So that's why it has to release the lock after 30 minutes. So that is the concept. And there will be cases where we have to go for private edit also. So if you're having this check-in checkout concept, then we should be understanding this particular rule set or particular version is still in the development phase. This is what we are seeing, right? So if it is still in the check-in checkout, meaning developers has to check out this for the development, and they have to check in this once they are done with their work. So meaning this particular version is still in the development phase. Suppose if I'm going to the version number 1, which is already moved to the production. So if I'm going to the production number 1, so can I able to see anything like save or check-in checkout? Nothing, right? So instead we will be having private edit option for the logged rule sets, logged versions. Let me show you. So this is one of the rule which has been created in the OOTB rule set. So for sure we cannot able to make any modifications to the OOTB rule sets. Okay, so for the testing purpose, if you want to make any of the modifications, what you can able to do is you can just directly click on private edit. Private edit meaning this particular rule will be under your control and it will not be known to anyone. It will not be affecting other development work also. So even if the version number 1 is logged in your real time, not only the version number 1, if any of the versions are logged, and if you want to just check, if you want to just make modifications to that rule, and if you want to see the output, even then you can directly click on private edit and click on private edit again. Then you can able to make any modifications here. You can able to add the new step like property set, and you can able to save this also. It will be accepting the changes. And now if you refresh it, or if you want to use this activity which is locked into your testing purpose, you can able to see this. So however we are making these changes, that will be reflected perfectly as per the changes. but these changes cannot be saved into the production. So that's why there will not be check-in option. So we have to just save this in order to see for the testing perspective, and then don't forget to discard it. If you discard it, everything will be set to the normal. Even if you are making private changes also, I mean private edit also, your manager or no one will be getting notified. It will not be blocking other development work also. So that is the important feature given by PRPC. Okay. So for the testing purpose, for each and every rule to test how it is behaving, or if I'm trying to make modifications to this, how it should be changing, then we'll be doing the private edit. So the first thing is, if you're working on the version number 1, which is completely logged out, and if you want to work on the same, I mean, if you want to work on the same rule, like the section rule what we are discussing earlier, okay, if you want to work on the same rule, what you will be doing, you will not be directly creating the version number 2 rule, and you'll not directly check for the output. Why? Because after creating the version rule, and if the changes are not being fixed or applicable, then creating this particular rule will be wasted, right? You can able to delete it, that's secondary. But for that, what people will be doing is, they will be just using the same version number 1, which is in the private edit mode. They can able to make the necessary changes in that, and they will be once those changes are reflected completely, then they can able to create the new version with the number 2. Okay, so for the testing purpose, we can able to see this logged versions also, logged rules also. So this is how we'll be practicing with the versioning. Understood, both of you?
Yeah.
So after this, I thought of explaining you something like obj open. It will be taking a long time. If we start, then it will be stuck in the middle. So I think we'll start it tomorrow. So meanwhile, if you have any doubts or if you want to refresh any concept, I can do that. Actually,
Chandra,
yes, yes.
actually, can you give me something like a short introduction from the data types, like why we go for the activity, then what is the next steps we move on for the tracer and call branch. So there are some options we had with the previous class, right? Can you give me short notes, like a short brief introduction about all those points to recall?
Okay, so you're looking for activity call method or data types with activity calling? I can tell
No,
you in brief, we have
when
some
we are
programs.
pushing data from the
Data. Yes, yes.
from the page
Okay,
into
let me
the
tell you. Let me tell you.
reports, we
So
are
instead
using
of,
for.
if you, yeah,
Mhm,
yeah, if we want to show anything in the drop downs or anything, instead of we giving
mhm,
local list, what we'll be doing is we are creating data types. So we have created state data table as well as the hospital data table. And the data table, what are the data we have in the data table, that has to be given as a source to the drop down. So in order to give the source as a drop down, we'll be having three options. So one is with the activity, one another is report definition, and next is data pages. Okay, we can able to use any of these three. That is what we are understanding. Suppose if I want to go with the clipboard meaning activity only. If I'm trying to go with the clipboard, then I can able to get, I should be first getting this page onto the clipboard either using activity or the data transforms. If we are going with the activities, we have to use few methods. Okay, first thing what we are trying to do is we are trying to use one page new method, using which I will be creating one empty page on the clipboard, and then after I will be using either obj browse in order to get the multiple instances, and I will be getting all the data created onto the particular clipboard page what we have just created, and this clipboard page will be given as a source to this particular drop down. From there we can able to get all the data. And apart from these methods, we have discussed also like call, branch, and queue. So this call, branch, and queue, technically we should be calling this as an instructions, and these three are meant for calling one activity into another activity. Call and branch, those two are like synchronous, they will be having synchronous execution, meaning if I'm trying to call any of the activity using call or branch, parent activity will be waiting for the child activity to be executed. Once the child activity execution is completely done, it will be coming back to the parent activity execution, and then it will be continuing as per the call method, and if it is, it will be stopping at the particular step if it is like a branch method. So ultimately parent activity has to wait for the child activity. So this kind of behavior, this kind of execution is called as a synchronous. And other thing like queue is also one of the instruction which is to be called from which is to be used to call one activity into another activity. Okay, and parent activity and child activity will not wait for in each other. Execution will be done both parallelly. So based on the business requirement, we have to go for call, branch, or queue. Okay, suppose if you join in your organization, first initially onboarding process has to be done for you, and parallelly background check process also has to be initiated from your end. So both will be done parallelly. So one will not be waiting for the another. So in that case, we'll be going for queue methods. Okay, and if you want to have one method, or if you want to have one process executed after another process, then we'll be going for either call or branch. So queue method will be using if you want to have any of the things executed parallelly. Okay, this is one of the source. Clipboard page, like using activities, is one of the source. So till now clear, no?
Yeah, clear, Chandra.
So the disadvantage of this activities is, if I'm using this activity as a source, I mean the clipboard page as a source to this particular drop down, PRPC will not understand whether this activity execution should be restricted or not. Suppose I'm refresh, I'll be creating the work object ID, and I'll be getting the data ready on the clipboard. Then I will be getting the data ready on the drop down. So everything is working fine for me. And now if I'm refreshing the section, what it is doing, it has to load the entire page, and in this process it has to load the states drop down, and state drop down has to execute the activity again. So again it has to generate few queries, it has to interact with the database, it will be pulling out the data, and it has to put it on the clipboard. Okay, and if I'm refreshing it again the same process. It will be executing the source tool, it will be generating the queries, it will be interacting with the database, and data has to be put it on the PX results, and it has to be creating one new page on the clipboard, meaning whatever the page that is already there, that will be removed off, and it will be updating a clipboard again with the same page. So if I'm trying to refresh it for 100 times, okay, and similarly if I'm trying to create 100 different work object IDs, so for one thing, for one state values to be displayed, it will be interacting like 1000 times the database per day. That is for one operator, and another operator also can able to do the same. So he can able to create one work object ID from his end, he can able to refresh for those many times, and he can able to create new work object IDs also. For each and every action, either for the refreshing or creation of new work object, activity will be continuously interacting with the database only. So performance will be reduced. So that's why there will be two other options. PRPC will be completely recommending us not to go for activities wherever possible, but there will be cases where we have to go for activities also. In that case, we have to go for activities only. But in this kind of thing where we can able to get the data directly from our data table, we need not go for activities. There will be two other options also. That is, report definition is the one thing, and the data page. If I go for report definition, the advantage here is there will not be much advantage here compared to activities. Why? Because even if I'm using report definition, what it has to do, it has to interact with the database whenever I'm requesting meaning whenever I'm refreshing, or whenever I'm creating the work object IDs. So even if I'm trying to refresh for 100 times, for each and every work object I'm trying to refresh for 100 times, and likewise I'm trying to create 100 different work object IDs. So ultimately it has to interact with the database for 1000 times. Okay, even this seems to be behaving like the activities only, but the advantage with this report definition is it will not be having the new page created from our end. So it will be using the OOTB pages what it has already having. And the next thing is there is no much thing that we are giving as a customized one. So in the activities, I will be giving one new page, and I will be giving one page, OBJ browse, and then after I can able to give the page remove also. This is one way of we getting the output using activities. Similarly, other developer can able to get directly write the OBJ browse. He did not go for page new also. Why? Because OBJ browse will be directly creating one new page, right? So likewise, I can able to create activities in one way, and you can able to create the same thing in another way. So ultimately, the best as per the best practice only, PRPC performance will be decided. So this is the option PRPC is giving for us to make modifications to the activities. So if we are giving anything out of control, then performance will be reduced, but that's not the case with the report definition. In report definition, there is nothing like we can able to give customized one. We have to just select the properties, that's it. I cannot able to make this report definition to create new page, or I cannot able to make this to be having interacted with the external databases like this. So what are all the features we have in activities? Those many features are not there in report definition. So ultimately, it will be having most of the code automated as per the PRPC standards. So that's why report definition rule will be very lightweight compared to activities. Okay. So apart from this, there will be another source also called data pages. So the important advantage with this data page is, if it is having data ready on the clipboard, it has a mechanism to identify whether it has to be executing for the next time or not. Why? Because for the first time, if I'm trying to execute this particular drop down rule, then it will be loading the source, it has to execute the data page, and data page ultimately has to execute another rule called report definition or activity, and then it will be pulling the data from there for the first time. It will be interacting with the database. The first initial process will be same in all these three process. And next, then after, if I'm trying to refresh it or if I'm trying to create new work object IDs, PRPC can able to directly check whether this particular data page that has to be executed is already there on the clipboard or not. If it is there, then it will not execute all other rules. Okay, so instead of we hitting database for 1,000 times per operator, we can able to make this we can able to make this interaction for only one time using data pages. Data pages has a mechanism to hold the data where it can able to be can able to avoid interaction with the database. That is the biggest advantage with the data pages. The disadvantage here for with the data pages will be, we have to execute the rule for 2 times for the first time. Okay, so in all the cases we'll be having report definition or the activity executed for only one time initially, only for the first time I'm discussing. But here initially it has to execute the rule for 2 times. It has to create one data page, sorry, it has to run the data page rule, and data page rule has to execute some other rule like report definition or perspective. So that is one disadvantage. And next disadvantage is, if you are trying to update the data into the data table, that data will not be refreshed with this data page. Why? Because data is already there on the clipboard and it will not be having the updated data. So instead what we have to do is, we have to remove the data page from the clipboard. Then if you are trying to request for the same data page again, then it will be updated with the latest data. Okay, so clear, Uma? You expecting anything other than our discussion?
Yeah, I'm expecting the same, what you have thought right now. So I have some clarification, small doubts like why we go for report definition data pages. Similarly, we are working together, but what is the main ideas we need to focus on? Yeah, this was I expected.
Yeah, you just practice it, then I think it will be much clear for you.
Okay.
So, and we have practiced with the cascading drop downs also. We try to practice it for 2 more levels, like 4-level cascading or 5-level cascading with the parameters and the parameter pages. So if you
Mhm.
practice it, these kind of interview questions only will be getting.
Okay.
Okay, so there will not be anything much out of our discussion. It will be completely into our discussion only, but you have to understand whatever the question they are asking is, you are familiar or not. If you practice it only, you will be understanding that you are familiar with it. Okay,
Okay.
so
Mm.
there will not be any single question out of our discussion, but the
Okay.
thing is, you have to practice it daily, and then only you can able to explore more and more out of it. Okay, if you are we are trying to explain for the 3 level, they might be asking you for 5 level or the 6 level. They might be asking you the importance of data page or report definition likewise. So everything will be under our discussions only, but they will be coming to you in another way or in some other ways. That's it. So that will be coming only based up only by practicing it on daily. If you practice it on daily, then you can able to explore many things. That is what I'm trying to say. If you just delay for one class, then you will understand, then you will be feeling that whatever the thing I'm discussing, only that will be the syllabus for you, but that is not the thing. Okay, suppose if you are practicing it daily, then whatever the thing I'm discussing, you will practice it first, then after you will be thinking, or you will be exploring more of it. You will be start working, you will be start looking into pega pdn courses also, and you will be start working on this pega help guide. That's what, if you practice it daily, you will be getting more interest. If you are delaying it and if you are trying to practice it for only weekly, either in Saturday Sunday, then you will feel that whatever the thing I'm discussing, that will be considered as a perfect syllabus for you, which is not correct. Okay, So I recommend you to follow it on daily basis, and if not, by this weekend you try to complete each and everything and try to follow from the Monday. So this is just my suggestion. If you follow it on daily basis, you can able to get most out of it. So don't think that whatever the thing I'm discussing is the complete syllabus. Okay, interviewers might be asking in many other prospectus also. Ultimately they will be having discussion under our topics only, that's for sure, but they will be coming in some other means. That is the thing you have to understand. Okay, clear both of you?
Yes, sir.
Clear, Chandra.
Okay, so in tomorrow's class we'll discuss about OBJ methods. That will be very important. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.